Karen, that's right. Hi, Jen. Okay, nice to meet you.
All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. I do have 6 p.m. We do have a quorum. Ms. Stanley is absent this evening. I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. This evening, we have the Assurance Director, Mr. Jim from Dean Dorton, who is going to come in and give the council a short presentation on who they are and what they're going to do for the city. So without further ado, sir, if you'd like, come on up to the podium. And I think everybody has a slide presentation at your table.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So
pleasure.
nice to meet you all. I'm Jim Tenza, Director with Dean Dorton. We're the new audit firm. So for those who didn't know, we submitted a proposal recently in February and we're selected to do the audit. And we're just getting started, so I just wanted to meet with you all and share a little bit of information. And please don't hesitate to ask questions. Glad to talk through whatever you want. But there is a short little presentation. A little background on the team that's going to be doing the audit. So I'm the guy that's responsible for signing the audit opinion and overseeing the audit. I've been doing this for 37 years. Originally from Chicago, went to Bellarmine and been practicing CPA here in Louisville ever since. I was a partner at EY and I've been at Dean Dorton for the last 17 years and have a lot of experience working with government agencies. Some of the other key people on the team, Nick Reynolds, who couldn't be here today, he's the manager. His grandmother passed away over the weekend, but he's the manager that's going to be doing most of the detailed work with our staff. And then just so you know, we always have a second partner, and that's Simon Keemer. So just in case something happens to me or I'm not around, I've got a guy that's going to step in for me. He also looks over my shoulder and makes sure that I'm doing all the stuff I'm supposed to be doing. So we set it up that way so that we do a quality audit and that there's no disruption and you're not just dealing with me or just one person, you're dealing with the whole firm. And a little background about Dean Dorton. We're actually the largest accounting firm in Kentucky. We have 600 people at our firm. We have 3 offices in Kentucky, Louisville, Lexington, and Northern Kentucky. We also have offices in Indianapolis, Cincinnati, and Raleigh, North Carolina. And we do a bunch of audit work and a bunch of tax work, but we have a bunch of other consulting work that we do. So we have, for example, a lot of technology consultants do a lot of cybersecurity work, help companies or organizations put in new systems. We have outsourced accounting. We have healthcare consulting, business valuation people. So a lot of stuff. If there's anything that ever comes up, we have a lot of experts who can help. And just so you know, we focus on 8 industries specifically. We do audit work and tax work with a lot of different industries. Government agencies is one of the industries we really focus in on. So we have a lot of expertise. We audit a lot of large government entities, administrative offices of the courts, for example. The whole court system for Kentucky, we do their audit. KET, Northern Kentucky University, large state organizations. We actually do the audit of the Kentucky League of Cities, and we audit a bunch of other cities. Cities, St. Matthews, Indian Hills, Mount Washington, Shively, so we have a lot of experience. As far as the actual audit approach, I like to share kind of what we're going to do and just let you know. Sometimes there's a little bit of miscommunication. We do a risk-based audit, so we understand the organization, try to figure out where the risks are and focus our audit efforts in that area, whatever those risky areas are. We have to follow a bunch of regulations. So there's auditing standards that we have to follow. There's governmental auditing standards we have to follow. We follow all those things. We do everything we're supposed to do, but we also focus on those areas of higher risk. And our audit does not give 100% assurance. We have materiality. We look at scope. We don't look at every single transaction. We take a lot of professional judgment to figure out what we're going to test and how we're going to test it. But we don't test 100%. So, just because you have an audit, don't think the numbers are exactly correct. We determine materiality. We will do a really good job, and you'll know the numbers are good, but it's just not 100% assurance. And we do, besides testing the numbers, we look at the controls, we test the controls, we do analytic procedures, so we take a really good look at things, and we'll do a really good job, but I just want to make sure we're not, it's never 100% assurance. As far as the timing, which is on slide 4, so right now, one of the things we have to do is we have to review the last set of audit work papers that were done. So that's for June 30, 24. We're doing the audit of June 30, 2025. So I met with the prior auditor, looked at his work papers. We've already done that. We've sent over our initial request of information that we need from the city. We're starting our planning right now, and that's why I'm meeting with you. And we're going to do most of our audit work starting May 4th. So we're going to get the audit done as quickly as we can, but it's not going to be quick enough for you, budgets and things that you need to do. We're going to finish most of the work in May, and then June 15th meeting, we're going to present our audit results and the draft of the financial statements. We always go through a draft with City Council for them to approve before we finalize it. The financial statements are your financial statements. We're auditing them. So we want to make sure you get them, you review them, and you're comfortable with those before we issue them. But typically what we do, we'll provide that draft a week or so before the meeting so you can review them. We'll walk through them in the June 15th meeting, and then the very next day finalize them and issue them. So that's our plan as far as timing. The next page on this presentation, page 5, a few things with the audit. I know there were concerns over the last audit. That's part of the reason we were brought in. There may be a few minor things that you all had questions about with that audit, or may not be completely right. We're not going to reissue those or re-audit those. Based on what we saw, they're materially correct, and the auditing standards and accounting standards are very clear. If there's nothing significantly wrong with those, if anything needs to be fixed, you just fix them in the current year. So if there's any minor things, nobody wants to go back to June 30, 2024 and re-audit things and reissue things. Based on what we saw, they did do a competent audit. Again, there may have been a couple typos or one number that was slightly wrong, but it was minor, and there's no reason to go back and do anything. As far as the current year, as far as significant audit risks, we're not really concerned about anything more than just a normal audit. And two of the things that we mentioned here, one is what we call management override of controls. Whenever you have a smaller organization with a limited number of people, the controls are never going to be perfect, and you're always, if the mayor or Sonia goes in and, they can kind of circumvent the controls a little bit and make some changes. We're aware of that. We think that's a risk. It's common with all smaller cities and smaller organizations. We're going to do some specific procedures around that to alleviate that risk. And then also when it comes to revenue, every single organization, there's a risk that someone could try to inflate the revenues or move them around. So we do some very specific procedures on revenue to make sure those are correct. We'll audit all the numbers, but those are the two areas that we think are significant risks, and those are very, very common with all organizations. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that we're actually going to issue 2 reports. One is on the financial statements, and the other one is on the internal controls over financial reporting. Those are both required. So we'll issue both those, and if there are any issues, problems, we'll put those in our report, but we'll also let you know in advance of the meeting. We never like to surprise anyone. We like to have upfront conversations. And that's what leads to the last page, a couple things on communication. One is we want to have a two-way communication here. We'll do the audit and we'll share with you any issues or problems. We're not here every single day. We don't know everything that's going on. If you have certain concerns or certain things come to your attention, we expect you to let us know also, especially when it comes to things like, if there's any risks of fraud or if there's any allegations of fraud, if there's any concerns over independence between our firm and the city, we expect you to let us know. We take independence concerns very seriously. We have all of our people in our firm confirm that they're independent of the city in every audit that we do to make sure we don't so if one of our employees, mother was sitting on the city council, we would let you know, and we would do things to make sure that's not an independence issue. We're not aware of any independence issues, but we're a big organization and you all have a lot of connections. If you have any relationships with Dean Dorton, we expect you to bring it to our attention, and we expect you to share with us any concerns that you may have so we can make sure we address those during the audit. So there's a lot I went through, but I wanted to share all of that with you. And with that, if there are any concerns, if you do want to talk about things, I'm glad to talk about them now, answer any questions, or you can reach out to me individually and I'll be glad to chat with you.
Jim, I think I asked you a few months ago that being that we're a little behind, that since the audit could possibly hold up a final budget for 26-27?
So technically, you're supposed to have the audit done and before you do the budget. I'm not sure the exact timing of the budget, when it's supposed to be submitted. Is it
July 1st?
July 1st. So we should be done in time for you to submit it July 1st. So that's why we want to make sure we got done before June 30th. And we're planning on doing that.
Any further questions? Anything? Jim, if your contact information wasn't in this packet, if you don't mind, I'll make sure to get it to everybody.
Please. Yes, please do.
That's okay? Okay.
That'd be great.
Very good.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
You're
Look
welcome.
forward to it.
Thank you all.
Thank you. All right. I do have a couple other things to discuss this evening, but one of them is potential actionable item for next Monday in order to keep with our timeline with the Jefferson County PVA and then printing our tax bills, that I'm going to suggest that we potentially have a first reading for our tax rate. However, we do not have the preliminary assessment report from PVA, and that should be coming in this Friday, according to Sonia. And so if you remember back in the last several years, you always do the compensating rate calculations. The city cannot take more than 4% of the previous year's revenue in taxes, and if you do, you have to go through sort of a hearing process, if that's correct. And so anyway, for our second reading to be finished by the second week in May, which means that we'll probably have to call a special meeting for our caucus meeting in May so that we can go ahead and read that tax rate and finalize it so that those bills can be printed and we can still get them out on time like we have in the years past. So be looking for that. Again, the numbers don't come in until Friday afternoon, so most likely all day Monday we'll be working on it. And so in any event, we would most likely have that first reading with the rate and then discussion about the calculation and everything that goes along with it next Monday. Whether you take action on that is up to you. Just know that we would need to probably call another special meeting or something in between those times so we could get both readings done, in the amount of time that we need. So that's all I have on that one this evening. And then the other thing, I guess, that came across Stacy's desk, or at least questions, we don't have an official application yet, but Chapter 111, Peddlers, Merchants, and Solicitors, we have a potential applicant for soliciting within the city of Lyndon, our first one since 2019. There is a process. They do have to pay $100 per solicitor. They're required to submit the background checks for each person. It is up to the council to decide according to the ordinance here. And so while I don't have the official application, they asked some questions today about what kind of background check they actually need, but I'm assuming that they're going to go ahead and move forward with it, and it's some kind of national company. I don't have the name in front of me either. Like I said, it's just been kind of a investigative question and answer session, really. But be looking for solicitors, possibly. I don't know if there's anything we can do as far as denying that application, but I just wanted to make everybody aware that the one thing that you can do, while you can't say no soliciting for the entire city or for your street, that I've found it in other cities like Hurstbourne, have no soliciting stickers or signs, and you put those at your front door or on your window at your front door above the doorbell, that solicitors are supposed to uphold your request, that no solicitation. So that's my advice to everybody is if you see solicitors, if we do end up approving these folks and they come around and they have their permit from the city of Lyndon, they're allowed to knock on your door, but they should be aware when they do fill out the application, if somebody has no solicitation sign at their residence, then that means they're supposed to turn around and go to the next house. So for those of you here that don't already have that on your door, I suggest doing something like that. I just hand wrote one and taped it on my window, but
We
yes,
don't
Ms.
know who
Ricketts.
this company is?
Right now, no, and I'm going to wait, hopefully, or not hopefully, but if they do get it by next Monday, we can have more discussion on exactly who it is, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. It'd be the first official one that we've given out and request actually since 2019, which has been some time. Well, I was going to ask John about something on that one, but usually these folks do get permits from Metro, and the ones that you do see in your neighborhoods that do come around say, well, I have a permit, but it's from Metro Louisville and it's not encompassing with the city of Lyndon. So a lot of times the residents will call and our police will go by and just let them know that they're not authorized to knock on the doors around here, so they usually move on. But at this point, if we do allow this, which I think can't really be any reason why we can't allow it. I mean,
there's
they follow
plenty of law about this that's been generated through the years. So the deal is that you can regulate it, you can't deny the conduct, because although it is business speech, it's still free speech. So there's only so much you can do to say completely no, and that is done through regulating the conduct to make sure that the folks that are coming around are safe, that they have passed some sort of minimal background checks, and that they're identifiable, that they have ID, that folks can recognize that these folks have been vetted through the system. And then you can have the permit for a limited period of time so that it's not open-ended. Those are the things that you can do. The reasons that you would be able to deny, I think, let me look in the ordinance, but typically it's that they didn't meet the vetting process. So if we go, okay. So the vetting process is your ordinance 111.04B. So the application shall be approved unless investigation discloses tangible evidence that the conduct of the applicant's business would pose a substantial threat to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And then there's a list of 6 criteria. So you would have to, that's the only reason that you would be able to deny it, is based on 111.04B and those standards in there. And then, of course, there's a revocation procedure if you grant a license or grant a permit and then there's some kind of abuse of that permission.
Thanks for that clarification, sir. Again, if we get anything else by next Monday, I'll let you all know who it is, and then we can always post that on social media channels and whatever else material that we have available to us to let folks know, and then how to combat that if you so wish to, put up signage. So just thought we should know about that. Okay, really, those were the three things that we had. I don't think we've had any unfinished business from last month that I can recall, so at this point, I'll let the council ask questions or bring up anything that they have. So, go ahead.
I have a couple things. One, the Lyndon Lane streetscape.
Yep.
Is that something, should there have been a change order that we approved? Because I noticed that they've started doing the work again, and we haven't seen any of the documentation about that.
At this point, there isn't a change order that's ready, but there will be. So they're continuing to work under the current budget and everything else. They're not at the point to where it's going to exceed that.
Okay, so they're not doing anything out of the scope of work that we approved?
Out of the scope, not necessarily. It's just everything, like I said about before, with the utilities and discovery of misplaced items not marked correctly and whatever else, that all those things that they've had to do to kind of do the general work that is under that first, contract. Okay. So it's not really anything, like, we haven't added anything different to the original plan. It's just doing things different to get to the final result. Like I said, the utility deal was a big thing, so.
So what will that look like when it gets, because we're pretty certain it's gonna go over budget. So
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's a line item within the category, and so that line item's not gonna throw the category over that calls for an amendment to the budget necessarily.
But don't we still have to approve since the amount is so much above what we initially approved? The bid, especially?
Well, yeah, you do, but I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're getting at.
Well, if we were
You're saying
quoted a
it's
certain amount and now they're saying that quote is going to be way above that amount, we should have to approve that amount to be spent on that project.
I don't deny that, but again, they're not over yet, and so there could be some things that change, price of concrete, whatever, in the next couple of weeks, not that that's going to happen, but there's a chance that it's not going to go that far over like that, even a little bit.
But shouldn't we have to approve when it goes a little bit over?
Well, not even that. That's the wrong word. It might not go over at all.
Okay.
I don't have all the final numbers. Again, I gave you the estimate from the last time, and there's been some changes and things that have actually taken that down since we last talked.
Okay. Well, I haven't seen anything of the new plans, so if you could send that to us, that would be great, so that we can
Like
have,
plans, or you just mean breakdown by price?
I guess what is different from what the original bid was to now, what the extra things they're doing, and what the cost
Okay,
is.
so, some excavation work and some, like I said, the relocation of utilities. I can find that for us. In fact, I might have it for you. I will look. Any other questions? I know you have some.
The budget?
Yeah, so there's a committee. I'll let the committee's been given my budget. The committee gets to discuss that, and I'll let the chairperson of that committee discuss anything further.
Yeah, that's fine, but you're supposed to give us the budget for us to review this evening.
The committee will give it to you.
There's never been any discussion about that. I asked when you were going to give us the budget, and you said it would be at the April caucus meeting minute, and it was in the minutes.
And that was prior to approving everybody for the committee.
And at no point was it ever that it was determined that the committee would be giving the budget to us. I would like a copy of the budget, please and thank you.
Ms. Ricketts, do you have one in your pile? Give it to her.
No, but I can get one.
Okay. We'll wait till, after the meeting, I'll email that to you immediately. There's no problem, you can't have it. I don't mind you seeing it, but we're not gonna, the committee gets to look at it and make their decisions on what I propose to them, and then come back to you for ultimate approval, denial,
Sure,
whatever.
I get that, but we're supposed to have
You don't
time
have
to
to
look
be,
over.
just calm down.
I am perfectly okay, so thank you very much, I appreciate you. But so we are supposed to have the budget in a certain amount of time so we can review it. And that is why I asked when we would have it, and you stated that we would have it at this April caucus meeting. So that is why I'm adamant about it, because I asked, and you gave us a date. Mayor, can I speak?
No, not yet. Oh, for the committee, actually, I'm going to allow that. She is on the committee, so go right ahead. And this is not a council meeting, so it's kind of an open floor, in my opinion. Go right ahead, Ms. Morris.
Okay, the committee discussed that in depth. And the way we have taken our mission is the mayor gives us something, we review it, we all look at every line item, and then we're going to give it back to him. And he's going to come back to us. The purpose of the committee, as I was told, is to avoid the debacle from last year. So that's why the committee was assigned. If that's not going to be it, and if you're going to sit here and not listen to the committee, then we just need to be rid of it.
So that's not actually a way, so if you all were going to change the way the budget is presented, that has to be passed by council. If in the past, it is presented a certain way, and now that we have a committee and you all are changing the way that the budget is presented to us, that is something that has to be passed by council.
The budget will be presented by the mayor, not by the committee.
Okay, well,
Isn't that the requirement, is that the budget is presented by the mayor to the council?
My budget message is not finalized until the committee reviews it and gives their suggestions, and then I make those changes, and then I'll revise my budget message to then present to the council like I do for a first reading of that budget. And it doesn't matter if it's in April or May, or any day. We can call whatever special meetings we need to.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you. Okay. Questions from the council, because I know we have several folks in the audience today, and there was something up here on our desks that I did not distribute, so before I let that happen, please, you have your mic on.
Another item that I would bring up, kind of in regards to budgeting for next year, I think that I would like to have on the agenda for next week, I would like us to consider an ordinance to reestablish the compensation for the elected officials, since this is an election year.
You can't do it in an election year.
Yes, this is the only time you can do it.
Can you?
It has to be done by May 1st in the year of election to take effect in the new term. So in order to do it, it has to be done by ordinance. The ordinance takes 2 readings, and the final reading can't be on May 1st. It has to be before May 1st. So that's how the statute's set up. So you do have some time, but you have...
It's actually before the first, it can't be later than the first Monday in May.
Right, so you have about a week to do a ordinance that takes 2 readings. So that would be possible, yes.
So I would like to recommend that we do that.
Well, there's no action to be taken tonight, so your recommendation is taken. You're going to draw that up and have something to present?
Sure.
Okay. Very good. Who else? Mic on? Nobody? Folks, if you wish to speak, now's the time. If you didn't sign in, please do so on your way out, but let us know who you are, where you live, and for the record, and what you're here to talk about.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Meyer.
Good evening, hi. Hello, my name is Peggy Meyer. I live at 9004 Lyndon Lakes Place, and I'm here this evening to introduce to you Brian Storrs, who is from the Kentucky Division of Water. I was able to make contact with him after the last time when we all talked about the rezoning and everything. I continued forward a few of us, Karen Toole and Jeff Thomas, both longtime residents of Lyndon, and I proceeded with trying to make connections to address the flooding within Middle Fork and Beargrass Creek. And we reached out to the Kentucky Division of Water. Dr. Storrs is here tonight to do a presentation. That is a result from, we've also met, we had a meeting on April the 9th with MSD and with Lloyd Rafferty. And she is going, just to let you know a little background going forward, is that she has already responded back to say that MSD would move forward with a modeler to look at options, and that they would do the preliminary funding for that modeler. So, but we are, the information presented tonight will be about, that Brian's going to present, will be a nature-based solution. And that is what we want to integrate and work with MSDs, for the options here within our community. And we'd like for him to give an informative session now, so that going forward, you'll kind of have the background and everything of what's being discussed. And when we left, I've tried to keep, the last time when we left, Ms. Barto said that she'd like to participate with our little focus group. We've kept her informed going forward, and included, contact across. So, Brian? And he has, you can talk about it.
Hello, Mayor.
Hello.
Council members. My name is Dr. Brian Storrs, and I work for Division of Water, and I help communities across the state with flooding issues. And you may not know this, Amy and I were talking about this. There's about 80 to 86% of our communities in Kentucky are in the floodplain or experiencing flooding at some level. And so it's a huge problem across the state of Kentucky, and the Lyndon Lakes area is just one example of that. They reached out to me and they said, we've been flooding forever. Is there any way you could come help us with that? And so we had to approach this particular project kind of like a holler in eastern Kentucky, because that's what you have to do in urban environments, is find out what property you have available. And there's usually very little property available in kind of an urban setting and stuff to do flood mitigation. And the whole concept of the flood mitigation that we're doing with communities is to create spaces for the water to go instead of where the water is currently going, right? And that involves a lot of excavation of areas adjacent to the creek. And as Division of Water, it's nice to have somebody working on it, because it's easy for me to kind of work with permitting and get the permits to do that. And so these are the most kind of cost-effective methods that we're doing across the state. The first recommendation is number 1, and that is a second channel that meanders next to the first channel. And the way this has worked, this is called a high flow channel, and you have another handout on the high flow channels and the way they work. And a contractor working with an engineer would go in and create a second river system next to the primary. And once that primary creek system starts to get to the point where it's about to flood, the water will start pour into the second one, and then it'll create additional, probably twice the capacity that the current stream has, right? And the next project is number 2, and this is called a floodplain sink, and this is also something that we're using in many, many communities. And this is essentially creating a French drain that's as big as you possibly can to give the water someplace to go. And there's a property owner right there at the intersection, which apparently floods all the time, trapping people in the community. And the community group is pretty confident that that property owner is willing to work with the city and MSD, because really you only need the front yard is excavated down maybe a couple of feet so it's concave, then replant grass so it looks exactly like it is now. It's just a concave instead of convex to give that water a place to go, and you can put an under drain in below the turf. And once the creek drops back down, that water will slowly drain out of that yard back into the creek. right? And so the third option is the giant basin that is upstream of that, and clearly looking at that giant basin, there's a lot of excavation and capacity that could be increased in that area. So I rank these projects in 1, 2, and 3 based on projects we're doing in other areas across the state, and the number 1 and 2, the combination of those two in places like Moorhead and Salt Lick and Letcher County are according to the model, are estimated to drop the 100-year flood by a half a foot to a full foot. So you could expect quite a bit of reduction of water using those two options. And then if you can get MSD to dig out the, increase the capacity in number 3, then you're really doing a lot of flood mitigation for the Lyndon Lakes area. And then I would also suggest after you get this project going is to engage with Middletown upstream and start to get them working on these kinds of projects, because the more flood water that they catch up there, the less makes it down here to the Lyndon Lakes area. And these are all nature-based solutions. This is not concrete. These are a restoration of the environment. This is creating a new stream. This is creating a new flood sink, which is engaging the floodplain. There's a tremendous amount of fill that is going to come out of these projects. The one we're doing in Salt Lick is the estimate is about 80,000 cubic yards. But if you've got contractors around here, you have landscapers, that fill is actually incredibly valuable. And there's a project in Ohio where they did something similar, and they came out in the black at the end of the project because they sold all the fill off to the landscapers and different agencies that wanted it. If it's high quality, that soil testing is something that you should do beforehand. Another option is, I was told that U of L is building a building nearby. And looking at the property they're going to build it, they're going to need a lot of fill to level that out. And so they may actually go and excavate this and do this work for you as a partnership, because they need that fill for the building they're putting in, right? And so you can partner with other groups that need the fill, or you can sell it off. You can decide what you want to do with it, because this will be a tremendous amount of fill that's coming out of this area to be able to do this. And then I would also encourage building public green space in this area. If you're going to build in the new stream, you might as well put in new hiking trails and make this really a valuable commodity to the whole community, because that's what other communities are doing, is they're doing these flood mitigation practices with nature-based solutions, and then they're turning them into public green space and hiking trails and really making them a benefit to the community. And we talk about this floodplain environment. It's no longer a floodplain, it's a people flood the plain, because we're reclaiming it with flood mitigation and then on top of that public green space. So this is projects that we're bringing to you. This is a win for everybody involved, the community, the city, U of L to use the fill. And our biggest job is just to help these communities with flood mitigation. And you've got a great working group here with the 3 people that brought me in, because they've already been able to leverage funding from MSD, which is about $100,000 to do the initial part, because there's planning, there's design and construction, and the planning, you got to have an engineer come and do their modeling and make sure everything's going to work, and show how much flood mitigation you're going to get out of these projects. And that usually costs about $100,000, and they were able to convince MSD to fund that right off the bat. So I congratulate them on their early success, and I hope the city will help them move forward to the next phases of design and construction. And any questions you have, I'm here.
So is your recommendation to look at all 3?
My recommendation is to the hydrologic engineer that MSD is going to have this project, is to make sure that all 3 of these projects are part of what they're doing. There's some engineers that really push concrete, big tunnels that go underground and that kind of thing, and they don't have the best success with them a lot of times. But I would really push you to think about nature-based solutions for this system here, because it would really benefit the community for public green space and re-engaging. So that's what my recommendation is let the engineer put in whatever kind of projects they want to do, but make sure these 3 are part of that. Once they build that flood mitigation model, you can throw in anything you want, culvert size, bridge size, whatever you want, and put it in that model, and you can get an output of what are the best projects that'll give you the best bang for the buck.
Will you have something available, estimate, whatever, for the city, for our cost?
That is all, so that all comes out of the planning document. So that's what happened. MSD is going to pay for the engineer to do that, and usually part of that planning is develop a flood mitigation model, test any possibilities in that model, and then whatever comes out of the top, they usually give kind of a cost estimate for the price. But I will tell you right now, so this number 2 is called a floodplain sink. We're building one in Mount Sterling right now, and it's going to be about 5.5 acres. So you imagine a 5.5 acre French drain and stuff. It's going to catch 6 million gallons of water, huge, and then sink it into the ground. The price on that is about $3.5 million, but if the city's partnered with Walker Construction, who builds roads, Walker Construction is going to take the fill, and it's dropping the price tag down to $250,000. So that's a good example. If you can figure out something to do with a fill, somebody to buy it, somebody to use it and stuff, it dramatically reduces the cost of these projects. Because these projects, the biggest expense is transport of the fill, the trucks, the gas, all that kind of thing. And my guess is, with Clausen and huge engineering firms around here, you probably can get rid of that fill pretty quick. Unless there's, former industrial site here, or there's heavy metals in the soil, and that's some part of the project is testing the soil and seeing what kind of quality it is. Any other questions for me?
Yes, are you able to also provide us just some rough information about Middletown so that when we move forward with this, that we can address the Middletown issue?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know a whole lot about Middletown, but, usually when I have a community group like this that calls us up, the first thing we do is jump on Google Earth and look at available properties. So if there are any properties in Middletown and stuff that are adjacent to their creeks, those are all prime properties for catching water. Every bucket of sediment that we excavate out of the floodplain next to the creek is one less bucket. They're 1-to-1 that's not going into a flooding area. So the more sediment that you excavate out adjacent to these creeks to give that water to go, the less water you have flooding in your neighborhoods and in homes and intersections.
So back to my question.
Yes.
Obviously, you heard we were about ready to begin the budget process.
Yes.
So I don't know, I know you can't guess, but if we have an idea, this would go probably under capital projects.
Yeah, well, I do know an engineering firm, so they're covering the planning for you, which is $100,000 right out the top, right? And typically we can get a community from planning through design ready for construction for about $250,000. So if they're covering $100,000 for the planning, you could estimate around $150,000 for the design, where they actually create the CAD documents that they can give to construction workers. So, and that, there might be a grant or different options for that. We have a stormwater management grant for the city that you can apply for, OSG funding that's for communities. There's different options for that. But you think about these kind of infrastructure projects, $150,000 is about the cheapest you possibly can get for any kind of infrastructure project. And also on the back end, if your biggest expense is the fill and you can figure that out, this is about the cheapest possible way to do flood mitigation that exists. And it's because it's nature-based solutions. This doesn't involve concrete. And if you guys have any other questions too, or you know people in Middletown, you want me to go talk to them, I gave 37 presentations last year, and it was 3/4 of them were in flood mitigation to city councils, fiscal courts, community groups and stuff, because everybody's flooding, and that's 3/4 of my job is helping communities with flood mitigation. And I'm just here to help. Don't do any kind of enforcement or anything like that.
So the detention basin has been there a long time,
Yep.
maybe 25 years or so. So in that time, it seems to me that it would lose capacity due to sediment and
fill.
things within
Yep.
it. And would there, even with a detention basin of this size, would there be a maintenance schedule where you would go in every few years to make sure that you're getting the sediment out on a regular periodic basis to keep the capacity? Is that reasonable?
Yeah, that basin is absolutely massive. So, but it probably hasn't been maintained since the 90s. I don't know, when did they put it in? The 80s, 90s?
2004, I think.
2004, yeah.
So 20 years.
So, and then it's also a MSD basin. It's not Division of Water. The thing about that too is if it's like any kind of other basins in other areas, that fill that's filled in is typically topsoil from other areas. And it can be very valuable. Like one of the projects we have are the 80,000 cubic yards. That is actually owned by a private property owner. He's very excited about being able to sell off 80,000 cubic yards of sediment to the farmers and landscapers and that kind of thing. But yeah, that regular maintenance schedule, that is all 100% up to MSD, because that's their stormwater basin that they built and are supposed to maintain. And they said that Lyndon area, that area has been on the radar for a while to kind of get busy with doing some stormwater work. And this meeting that we had and stuff, Lori said this is kind of the catalyst to start doing that. And that's why they jumped right in and stuff to offer to do all the planning, the flood mitigation, because they recognize that basin in this area and stuff has needed some work.
So one of the to-do items would be to establish that once every period of years or whatever, there would be an evaluation of the basin. I mean, let's say that they got the capacity where it needed to be, that every other year, every 5 years or whatever, there would be an analysis to see if it needed to be cleaned out, or do it annually or something like that, right?
Well, typically, and my guess is this is what's going to happen, is once they kind of work on that stormwater basin, there's usually a sediment forebay. It's built into them. And the sediment forebay is basically a pre-basin that has a bit of a ledge on it, and it catches that sediment, comes in, and the water spills over the top, and then they just go excavate that out every couple of years.
Yeah.
The standard kind of conventional stormwater basins are built with a sediment forebay, and my guess is that one was not.
Right.
And so when they go in to do the excavation, my guess is they would probably build some kind of a sediment forebay and have exactly what you're talking about in the schedule and stuff, so it doesn't fill back up.
My last question is the number 2 option, the on the private property.
Yes.
Is that dependent on the type of subsurface soils underneath it to be able to be permeable for that type of a structure?
Yes, so that's a nice thing about having well-qualified engineers is I can point to a structure and say, I want that to drain, and they can get it to drain no matter what. And that sometimes, if it's like in Moorhead, they have very sandy soils in the floodplain, so they just have to excavate the hole and it's going to drain naturally, just like kind of a septic field, right? Other areas like here where it's heavy clay soil, it's probably not going to drain very well, so they put in a PVC pipe underneath it. That's an underdrain, they call it. So there's a lot of options. That's a nice thing. The same thing about this number 1 option, I can point to that road, and I said as soon as that water is about to touch that road, I want it to pour it into the secondary channel instead, and an engineer can do that. They can get it that specific. I can point at a sidewalk and say, I want, as soon as it gets close to touching that sidewalk, I want it poured into that floodplain sink instead, and they can do that. So if you have a good engineer, they can get anything to drain, and they can get the water to go where they need it to.
Is there any value in deepening the existing channel, or would that have enough capacity, or would that be worthwhile to?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's scoured down to bedrock, so it's already down to the bedrock, and it's already down to the groundwater. And the second thing is we do not support dredging at all in the state of Kentucky, because really it's only going to minimally increase the capacity of that channel, even if you dug it down. So that's why this secondary channel is the option. And and you think about too, is like the setup for this is this creek has been kind of messed up, like a lot of our creeks up. It's pushed to the road and it's straightened. And that straightening of the channel like that creates a lot of volume and energy passing through it, which causes a lot of erosion and everything else. That's why this option here with the sinusoidal, it slows down the water, and then also that more curvature you put in, the more capacity you build in. So that's really a way to do it, is excavate this sediment, this fill out of the floodplain, and leave the actual creek alone. So it's down to bedrock already and stuff. There's not much you can do with it except for increasing next door. And I would say these are not just like, these are not do this, that, or this. I would recommend doing all 3 of these. It's just a priority and stuff. Number 1 is going to give you a lot of bang for the buck. Number 2 is going to be good for mitigating flooding at that intersection right there, because you could direct that water to that basin. And this property owner too, they can keep, even if it's an investment to do it and stuff, the city, you can turn it into a conservation easement, and the property owner keeps the deed, so they still technically own the property and stuff, but you can turn it into an easement to protect any kind of investment with that. And then number 3 is really going to be, that's going to be on MSD's timeline, because that's their basin, and they're going to do that when they do it.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right,
We
thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all for listening.
My pleasure.
I've got a question.
It's a good idea.
I've got a question.
Sure.
Just real
Or
quick.
sit, yeah.
The lovely biomed building that puts stuff into the ground and into the water, that we have the little signs that say, do not get in the water, do not drink water. How is that going to affect the soil in that retention basin? in the big basin.
She's talking about the U of L property that's there on Hurstbourne Lane. Are you aware of that?
Putting in the water.
Lord only knows.
There's a biomed lab that sits up above
The
that
basin.
small basin that, so up above that, there's a bio lab that's been there for quite some time.
We might be able to get some-
Dispersing, but, you know, it's under regulation of some kind, I guess, the Kentucky Division of Water Bureau test to see what kind of effort they have. But-
And also, have you guys approached MSD for any kind of inspection or anything like that?
I don't think so, but my thought was that might be a good source of revenue. If they're putting the stuff on the ground, that maybe they will help us.
You think they'll ever admit to that?
Yeah, we can certainly put
Well,
some-
their little signs already admit to it.
That's, I think, all across Beargrass Creek, though, what you're seeing.
No,
The
it's not.
warnings.
It stops.
Okay.
So I will say this too. We have, and a lot of people don't know this, so we have regional offices all across the state of Kentucky. And if you go to Division of Water Regional Office, you'll see them pop up, and that is a set of inspectors that all across the state of Kentucky. So if there's anything going in with your waterways that you think is suspect at all, you can contact those regional offices, and they will be out within a week or so to actually do an inspection. And I recommend that. And also MSD does inspections too. MSD, I just saw a presentation by MSD a couple months ago where in the wintertime they have thermal drones, and they will fly those thermal drones up the creek because they're looking for illicit discharge, because the illicit discharge that's coming out of buildings puts off a temperature compared to the ground, right? And so they'll fly these thermal drones and stuff, and they'll find these illicit discharges, and they'll go in and find these entities and stuff and make them stop whatever they're discharging. So you have a lot, between MSD and our regional offices, you have a lot of inspection that's at your disposal. It's just a matter of the community engaging and getting that done. I called the regional office in Pendleton County and stuff 2 weeks ago because there was a property owner had 2,000 tires that were next to the Licking River piled up on his property, which is, you know, next time you get a flood, those are going to be in the river. And so I called them up myself, and they handed out 2 notices of violation. And if the property owner doesn't take care of that, it's going to be a $5,000 a day fine. So you have a lot of power of your entity, you just need to engage with it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
Dana Isbell from Autumn Ridge. I'd like to know if the ethics committee, the new ethics committee meetings are open to the public?
Yes.
And if so, when? And also I'd like to know if the complaints are available for residents to view?
The meetings are open to the public. The Ethics Committee meetings are open to the public. They should be on the city calendar. However, I will say they've had several times where it's been just a few days' notice prior to, which all they're required is a 24-hour notice, but they're on the city calendar, the times. I think the next one is April 27th at 10 o'clock. But any of the ethics complaints, I think they have to go through the process before they're available for that type of viewing.
Okay.
I could be wrong, please.
That's correct.
Are they here?
The committee meetings, yes, they are here usually at 10:30, but it's variable on the day of the week, so I can let you know. Yes, thank you. Before you come up here, I've got something to say, because she brought up the ethics thing, and I'm not going to get too much into it, but I do have an ethics complaint against me, and it's rather bogus. And so what I feel right now, though, is that the council is trying to cancel me. They're doing these ethics things, and now they're messing with. I've got to have my own counsel that comes out of my own pocket over a bogus ethics complaint. And so now it was brought up that they're going to lower the officials' pay. Now, look, I didn't do this job to get rich, okay? I didn't get paid hardly anything, but I do get paid, and I do get paid as a mayor, and that's not what mayors should do. However, this council, before you came on, Ms. Benner, and before Mr. Yates also, gave me, unanimously, they gave me a raise, okay? $15,000 more than I started at. So what's going to happen is, if you do lower the pay, I'm going to win re-election, and I'm allowed to say that, okay? But I'm going to go to be a part-time mayor. You're not going to get the same things you've been getting from me. So we're going to have to hire more people and more contractors to fill in for all the things that I've done. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to toot my own horn and everything. There's a lot of things I don't have to do, but I do it because I love the city and I'm trying to save money. Okay, if I was a snowplow contractor myself this past year, I would have brought $80,000 in if I owned my own stuff. But that's how much I worked and could have charged for the amount of labor that I put in for this city. And I didn't ask for anything else. So yes, I do get paid. But you can pull that string and try to get it done, whatever. But I'm going to tell you, I'm still going to run because I'm not letting you all win. I'm not. And you may or may not be here. I'm sorry. Well, thank you for the applause. But this is a public forum and it's free speech, and I'm going to say it, everybody needs to see who and watch who they're voting for this time, please. Okay? So with that being said, Ms. Grice Owens, you can come on up.
Good evening, Dr. Grice Owens, Erlene. I've been, as I've said, I'm a long time resident of Lyndon, and I wanted to add to the reports that have come out about the committees that have been established. And one of the things, again, as a longtime resident, as someone who's been very engaged the last, year and a half or so, one of the things that I very much appreciate that has been initiated is more engagement of community. There are many of us who love this community, who want to work alongside the folks who are elected to make it even better and to serve in that way. So, and for instance, the Ethics Committee, the Budget Committee, there's another committee, Budget Committee, Ethics Committee.
The one you're on.
Yes, which is the one I'm going to report on, are best practice. This is, I've looked at other cities, I've looked at how councils work, how these systems work, and so I just want to clarify that that's a part of best practice, is to have that kind of community engagement. So I want to say that I'm very thankful for Councilmember Stanley's leadership with the Beautification Committee, and that may relate to some of the stuff that you all are talking about in terms of the waterways and collaborating around that, in terms of some conversation around that. I want to mention that the next committee meeting is April 29th at 4:30, and we will be meeting at Romara Place. The committee, as has been reported out before by Ms. Stanley, I think, is that we have facilitated the playground updates, which we're very excited about, and we're working on getting some community engagement in terms of when the playground is being upgraded. It'll have to be closed, and so are there some ways that community members such as the Y can help with offering some alternative activities. Of course, the farmers market came through that committee and has been going just fabulous. It's such a wonderful addition to the community. And then the nature garden is a part of the work that's coming out of that. And there are plans for the splash pad update. So I assume these kinds of projects and this kind of improvement will carry over into the next budget area, and including collaborating or looking at how we can optimize Romara Place. So part of what I want to make sure that folks are aware of is that, again, all these meetings are open to the public. And so if you or someone you know has particular interest in Romara Place, please plan to come to that meeting. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Anybody else, please? And if not, entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion. Becky, Ricketts, second Barto. All in favor say aye. See you next Monday. Sorry, I can't help myself.